would you mind just introducing yourself by your tag and how you got into Splatoon?
You,
You started first.
okay. Hi, my name is Bitjay. I am a competitive Splatoon player. I have been playing competitive Splatoon for maybe 8 years now. I've been playing more seriously since about 2020. That's when I consider my first real team to have been. And I've been playing Splatoon since Splatoon 1. But yeah, it has been a very big part of my life. And I'm currently on Birds of Paradise, and we have been a team for about 9 months now, so.
And my name is Trinity. I am Bitjay's mom. I learned to play video games on the Atari unit, even though I'm only 29. And during COVID, Bitjay and I were home a lot, and she forced me to try Splatoon, which I'd been kind of watching her play since Splatoon 1, but didn't know that much about the game except you paint and shoot. And when I first started, I literally could not paint and shoot, swim and shoot at the same time. It took me months to get used to being able to do a controller where you had to do multiple things with both hands at the same time. Uh, but I fell in love with the game. I fell in love with all the different weapons and how you would put each of them together in a different way, almost like solving the almost like the engineering judgment that was necessary. The same love I get out of engineering was the same love that I got out of Splatoon.
And this question's for both of you, really. Did you start playing casually first, or, like, especially for Trinity, was your idea to try and understand it as a competitive game right away because that's how BitJ was playing it?
Yes and no. I would say I had, because she was coaching me all along, I had um an innate sense of the game as a competitive, because it's a very different game competitively, I think, than just solo queue. And I had those ideas in my head to begin with, but I never, when I started, thought I would ever be good enough to play competitively. That only changed when I realized there were some people who wanted to play at that time, like at the A plus S minus level, and they were forming teams. Like I assumed everybody was as good as BitJ or better. Um, so it was only as I started to discover what Discord was and how to find teams that I realized that there were people who could play at my level and have fun with it.
So I actually, on that topic, I was sort of there for all of her journey from going from being hard stuck in C rank to around about when she first started like playing competitive Splatoon, and I ended up like coaching her throughout all of those ranks. And it was a very nice way to sort of just spend some time together, especially during COVID when it feels like everyone is going crazy. Like it was a nice way to stay a little bit sane.
Was competitive Splatoon the thing that pushed you to learn about Discord, Trinity?
I can't remember which came first, the chicken or an egg, but there was some point where BitJ didn't really want to use email, so we started using Discord just to connect with her and send little messages as a family. Um, but then really getting into Discord and finding some servers and understanding the concept of servers and how to use them definitely was because of competitive Splatoon.
Okay, so it was kind of like the way that you didn't even like use text messaging. You went straight to messaging each other on Discord.
Yes, the whole family, essentially, because we were forced to. And we still keep that up. That's our major way of the family contacting each other now is Discord.
That's interesting. It's like we,
All
we
our
just
phone
skipped
calls are on
texting.
Discord. Oh,
Um,
I didn't have a cell phone.
Oh,
I only had a work cell phone, so I couldn't take texts.
gotcha. That makes sense. Um, so would you say that were there some like gaming literacy issues that you were running into when you were first learning Splatoon? Do you feel like it was mostly just like Splatoon unique stuff, or were things like camera control, understanding the concept of HP, like were things like that not carryovers from your Atari days?
None of those carried over. I had to learn motion control, uh, like there were, this will sound silly, but it was years before I understood that there was a reticle. Like I didn't even see it and understand how to use it because I was learning so many new things that even that fundamental thing about a reticle didn't occur to me for years. Even after playing competitive Splatoon, I still didn't know about it.
Yeah, I
So
totally believe it.
yeah, so I am still going back and correcting mistakes from the very beginning.
Yeah, I had to teach her that you can't swim and shoot at the same time. I remember like she would just hold the swim button down and then mash the shoot button and then she would end up like, just popping out of ink and shooting a one shot and popping out of ink and shooting a one shot. And I had to teach her to think about it like a seesaw where when one goes up, the other goes down.
I like
And,
that. I might steal
look,
that analogy.
if she can learn competitive Splatoon, anyone can. And that was not an insult to her. It is a compliment to how far she's come.
But I had a good coach and several good coaches, including your videos, Jim. I watched your how to get out of, whatever rank a gazillion times.
Aw, shucks. Thank you.
In general, your videos and Bitjay's coaching and some Watson videos were very influential in helping me learn the game.
Do you two actually play together a lot, or is it like you'll watch one or the other play, or do you play separately?
Originally, we would play together a lot, but I've been a bit busier with college. And so we generally both play on our own, but we do still, I try to make time to play with her. Like, I've been in town, so I've been playing with her a bit more. Like, we played together yesterday,
Yeah, we definitely always play together when she's home from college.
which is kind of ironic given that that's the time where it's the least convenient to play together.
Because we're in the same room and doing Discord calls in the same room without all the right setup.
And I'm just like sitting on the floor with my tiny little handheld Switch. Not even handheld, like I have it set up on the table and I'm like sitting on the floor with the tiny screen.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
we do a lot of bonding over talking about Splatoon.
And we have actually, we have played in Riptide together before, and we've played in Lands together. I think we also played at Sunset Search. I try to play in Lands with her when I can, but it's a little bit tricky when if the rest of my team is also going to the LAN, and it's like, okay, well, which one of those do I choose? It's a rough decision to make.
I say always choose your team. I'll find others to play with.
You're clearly in college now. You're your own person out there in the world and everything. But you said you started back about 8 years ago. So one of the things that I want to talk about that I'm sure come up in a lot of like parent-kid relationships is rules about like playing the game online, boundaries about when to play and when to stop playing. That's something that I know causes a lot of conflict, and so I'm curious what kinds of rules there were in place for playing, and if there was ever any friction over those rules, any negotiation that had to happen over those rules, kind of like what was the structure of like supervising it and setting up for Bitjay to be able to play.
Some of this was, at a time where your parent, as a parent, I'm negotiating, what online presence my kids are going to have and what I'm comfortable with, and the general strategies of what to be careful about. But our initial rule was that she could only be online when she was in the living room. like not be in her room, door closed. I have no idea what's going on. Um, and she was pretty young at that point, like sixth grade or something. Um, and but it turned out that she kept that rule well into until she went to college.
See, you clearly did something right because I didn't even know that that was a rule. The Wii U was just in the living room.
Yeah. So my biggest worries were, what other people could do or say that would be inappropriate. And so a lot of that was having the discussion that inappropriate things could happen and to be very careful and don't do this and do that and to always let me know. And um, this will sound strange. A lot of families would not do this, but we had a rule that I could monitor all email communications, Discord at any time, had all the passwords, and she could also monitor mine, right? It went both ways. I wasn't going to say things in emails that she couldn't read. I don't think either one of us ever read any of those of each other. I certainly never read any of hers. But my point was, if something's going wrong and I'm not feeling right, I do feel no guilt about invading your privacy for your safety. And that was just my one rule. And I never had to use it. There was never anything in any way in her life that made me need to use that rule. But just privacy doesn't count when safety is concerned,
And
in
some,
my opinion.
something that I think is also worth noting in Splatoon, it is basically impossible to communicate with somebody that you met in game over Splatoon. You can't send any messages, there's no voice chat. It is not possible, besides pushing this way and booyah, for you to actually communicate to someone else at all. There's no way you can actually like message somebody else that you met on the Switch unless you like do some complicated thing where you just like get someone in a private battle and start writing things with paint on the floor. That is the best communication option that there is in this game. I feel like there are very few concerns about actually being safe online compared to like in something like Valorant, where you'll have like people on voice chat talking to you and nothing that they say gets archived. The community is just very mean in that game too. Like I don't think she would have let me play something like that when I was little, but Splatoon, like it's barely online. It's online in the sense where there are other people in your game, but that's it. There's no way to like essentially make contact.
And some of that was maybe in some ways when I first let you play, knowing that. But I think my real concerns came when you got on Discord.
Hmm.
I would
That
also say not only was she in the living room, she had open air headphones. So I could hear everything the other person was saying.
To an extent.
Well, again, I wasn't like,
And I think that was a rule that you enforced. I think I just prefer the feel and sound of open back headphones.
maybe I didn't enforce it, but I liked it
Yeah.
because I got to hear how other people were talking to you too. At least the vibe of it, even if I
Yeah.
didn't know every word.
it sounds like there's just generally a lot of trust between the two of you. Like that is not a lot of privacy, which is something that I don't expect in every parent-child relationship. But it sounds like it worked really well for you guys.
Yeah.
Mm.
And again, I never necessarily invaded the privacy, but and some of this was right when and I know kids get on social media much sooner now, but at that time, I just was never going to let them get on social media without me being able to monitor it
Mm-hmm.
for if I felt concerned. And as I said, I never felt concerned. I would say the other boundary we had is in general, I am this way too, is I don't like to have somebody come in the room and immediately tell me I must turn my attention to something else. Like I need time to transition. I just don't change gears quickly. And so her whole life, we always gave her 5 or 10 minute warnings So then it was not necessarily an issue when, because the game can last, I don't know, up to 8 minutes or whatever. And then, um, so we could always give her a warning and let her finish any game. So we never had any struggles of, um, get off right now, and what effect that has on the other teammates in the room. Um, but she also kept her commitments of when we gave her a warning, she didn't keep trying to push it and play longer and longer and longer. So it was a mutual respect on those transition boundaries.
Mhm.
Awesome. Yeah, that is something I was going to ask about directly, and it sounds like you guys had a great system for that. What are some issues that you may have seen or heard of between parents and kids that you didn't have, but that maybe you think you have solved better than they did? Like, what's something that's a cause of friction you've seen that has that you've been able to avoid, that you can like prescribe a way to get to iron out?
Well, I would say one of the biggest I've seen, at least, and or heard other people complaining about, is the parents wanting to cut off in the middle of the game. But I also, some of those same people keep pushing it and pushing it. Um, that that they're supposed to get off, they're supposed to be in bed, and they've even had their Wi-Fi turned off, and they're stealing the Wi-Fi of the next door neighbors and continuing to play late into the night instead of sleeping. Or not, we had certain times when homework would be done, and so we had that kind of pattern to the life. So when it was time to do that, she transitioned to doing that, and then she could play outside of that time once her homework was done until it's time to go to bed. So it's kind of that mutual respect of playing by the rules and not pushing them that I see some other people struggle with from both ways, not just what the parents always do. I think another one that I've seen happen is somebody wants to be on a competitive team. Um, and it's very hard to schedule. Like their parents maybe don't understand that if you make a commitment to play on Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 7 to 9 p.m. with a team, that you need to kind of be able to keep those commitments, as opposed to you can only play when that it's random. And that makes it hard to be on a competitive team.
Yeah, for sure.
Just like football practices at a certain time, or band practices at a certain time, Splatoon practices at a certain time, usually.
Yeah, exactly. Have you made friends with other parents in the community?
Sort of. So I have actually played Splatoon with Shadowwind and his mom and Bitjay, because Shadowwind was very nice. It was my very first LAN game was against um what, Moonlight plus Arashi.
Yeah, last,
Talk about intimidating.
yeah,
And Shadowwind came up and started talking to me and telling me his mom played Splatoon. And so then eventually we all played Splatoon together. Um, there are some other people who are also moms that play Splatoon that we kind of find each other. I don't know that I've met too many other moms who of older kids as opposed to teenagers or younger. Right. A lot of the parents I know have very young kids.
Young kids who don't play Splatoon?
Yeah, young kids who don't yet play Splatoon, right? Because
Yet.
they're 5 or 6. So they're not moms of competitive players.
Makes
I'm not
sense.
sure I've ever met anyone besides Shadowwind's mom that was a parent of a competitive player who also played. There is actually, I take that back. There is one other father, daughter, and I will respect their privacy at this point, although they probably wouldn't care, that regularly go to LANs and play together. And I've at least started talking to the dad and the daughter. And so they do LANs together. I don't know that they're on a team outside of going to LANs, but that's their thing. I've certainly met a lot of parents talk to me at lands. Somewhat because I'm sitting in the audience and watching, and so they'll just come sit next to me and watch with me or start talking. And most of the time, they assume I'm just a parent, not a competitive person. And then they always think it's so cool that I also play, and they often ask me questions, like they don't quite get the four different modes or something, or oh, I like to play, but I'm not good enough to play on a comp team. And I usually say, well, I started out, I wasn't very good, and I found teams to play with. The parents that I have met that often maybe accompanying the miners to the land really like, because they're at least making enough of an investment to take them to a land, and they enjoy the bonding that sharing that process gives them, like doing the travel, meeting their friends, talking a little bit about Splatoon, or at least letting them talk to them about Splatoon, even if they don't understand a word they're saying. I see those bonds between other parents and players.
That's really awesome. That just makes me happy. That does. One of the next videos I was thinking of making was continuing with my spectator's guide to Splatoon and talking about the game modes was the very next section of that video, and it sounds like that is one of the next questions that kind of needs answering for people. So I think that would be a good video to get into my lineup
Yeah,
here.
even just I would have needed that when I first started if I hadn't had Bitjay.
So it sounds like this is all like really informal stuff. Like there's not like some Discord server where all the parents are hanging out while their kids are going around Chuck E. Cheese.
Not that I know of.
I knew about a Discord server called Day Old Sushi where
Oh, yes,
en-
yes.
entry was limited to people who were 25 plus, but
So I will say, just this is maybe a side note, but I was at Riptide and I was sitting next to somebody and we were rooting on the teams that were playing, and then the guy, so we were chatting about random stuff, and then as he was getting up to leave, he's like, "Oh, I'd like to invite," and he found out I was competitive. He's like, "I'd like to invite you to Day Old Sushi," and I looked at him, I'm like, "Are you saying I look over 25?"
Yeah, no, I have. It is very rare in the competitive community to see anybody older than a young adult playing the game. Like I see people who are 28 and calling themselves like really old in the community. Um, and so it's very much, it would be good if there were more like if there's a broader age. A lot of people seem to think that, once you pass a certain age, then you can't really play esports anymore. But like Trinity's doing fine.
And I will say I've met a lot of people over 25 or so. Like we tend to find each other, and they may not have kids who play yet, and they may not even have kids at all, but um I've tended to, when I first started playing, I didn't have a rule about a minimum age. So sometimes I was playing with 12 and 14-year-olds. And as I got to know more, and there was nothing wrong with that. I enjoyed them, but I always made sure they knew I was older and that they should inform their parents if they needed to be informed. But as I met more and more people over 21, then especially over 18 and preferably over 21, then I could start playing with more and more people that were older.
this kind of goes for both of you. Has there ever been anything that made you feel unsafe in Splatoon or in other gaming or online spaces?
Not in Splatoon at all, no. Um, Other online gaming spaces, I mean, I've never felt unsafe with them, but with Splatoon, I genuinely don't see how I could be unsafe playing it. Because, like, even if I know somebody and I meet them in game and I want to like reach out to them and message them, there is no way of doing that. Even if I wanted to be friends with somebody, you can't contact them at all. So it's kind of impossible for it to really be unsafe. The worst thing you could do is like join somebody's game and then throw.
Well, but you add Discord in.
Discord is when things start getting a little bit more, like that's when things start having potential. Um, but I think that's just general online safety of Discord is a social media platform where you're going to be interacting with internet strangers who can, reach out and privately message you. That is a factor in pretty much every single website nowadays. Um, and so I think that's a more broad thing outside of just is competitive Splatoon safe? And competitive Splatoon is as safe as pretty much anything else you do on the internet, which is to say, you do have to be careful, but it is, it's not unsafe.
So no matter where you go, people are there. So you run into some people who are amazing, and you run into some people who are not amazing. There's part of that where when I was connecting with the younger generation who kind of grew up differently than I did and much more on social media, and I can't quite describe it. It was kind of my first foray into really interactive social media that I kind of got a glimpse into some bullying that can happen. I had to, there were times where I thought somebody was making somebody uncomfortable on my Discord server, my little, little teaming thing, and I had to ask them to leave because I didn't like how they were acting. And it wasn't like so overboard that it was anything I could say was illegal, but I just I asked them to stop doing something and they didn't. Somebody who was older who kept contacting at that time a 14-year-old who was on my team. And I just said, please stop. And they had wanted them to stop and they wouldn't stop. So I kicked them off the server. It didn't go anywhere, but I just didn't like that somebody wasn't respecting somebody else's boundaries. I've certainly seen people gang up on each other and bully people, and at least that's where if I was was around that, I could step in and stop that. And I don't know if Bitjay wants to talk about this, but I think that she has learned a lot of life skills through being on Discord and competitive teams in terms of finding ways to deal with people who act not in nice ways.
Absolutely. I mean, just this is also kind of connected to something that I did also want to mention. But competitive Splatoon in general has taught me so much about being a person and just dealing with, you know, like working with other people and like interpersonal conflicts. And like I am a much more emotionally well-adjusted person than I was before. And I think I'm more emotionally well-adjusted than I would be if I never played competitive Splatoon. Because, I think Splatoon is in general like, it's almost like a playground. It's like a nice sandbox for interacting with other people because you get a lot of the same conflicts that you would like, in a social environment, like in class or like working, like, because you are together with this group of people working towards a goal. And, there might be differences in the ways that you want to work towards that or differences in the end goal, and you'll have conflicts pop up. And just managing these conflicts and sort of navigating this environment was very good. Like, I think an example, one of my favorite things that I remember is I used to be, as a captain, like fairly impatient with people. I would get upset when like other people messed up, when they like couldn't make practice. I would just get like angry and frustrated until one day where I had signed my team up to play in low ink. And so, we had gotten like our warm-up scrim and we're all like together in the morning on the weekend, like committing to this. And then we just finished our warm-up scrim and we're like, okay, time to go check in. And so then we go to the tournament page, only to find that I never signed us up for the tournament. And so we couldn't check in and we couldn't play in the tournament because signups had already closed. And that was very humbling for me because in that moment I realized everyone makes mistakes. Um, and they don't happen on purpose, and getting angry at them doesn't accomplish anything. And that really, in the end, you just have to be understanding because no matter what someone's intentions are, no matter what their abilities are, sometimes they will just flat out mess up. There's no use getting angry or frustrated about that because it wasn't anybody's fault.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a great story.
One of the things I'd like to, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but I really want to emphasize is that, BitJ can talk about how being on a team and the emotional development that came from that. But I also think that Splatoon can really teach a lot of engineering principles. In that, right, there's different weapons and they have different strengths and weaknesses, and then there's different gear builds, and depending on what you're trying to accomplish, whether you want to go in fast and be able to come back quickly to life, or you want to paint more, or you want to throw more bombs. And so that the game is complex enough and requires enough understanding the game and the trade-offs and understanding the details and how that fits into the big picture, that I think it also builds a lot of engineering skills and science skills and logic skills. And so I think it's more than just a game that wastes time. I think it's a game that can really build a lot of different skills, life skills.
One of the things that Splatoon is really good for me right now is that it acts as sort of early warning system in my life. Because if I have, a personal emotional problem, if I'm feeling a certain way, then it'll tend to show its face in Splatoon significantly more before it starts to show its face in real life. Like as an example, if I find that I'm, weirdly like anxious about my gameplay. I'm scared of making mistakes, and I'm beating myself up for making those mistakes in the game. And if my mentality starts slipping, then I'll find that that's a pretty good early warning sign that like, something is up. And then I'll later start feeling those same feelings about things in real life, and I'll start being scared to make mistakes in real life. Or like if I'm not playing well, that can also mean it's because I'm not feeling well, like I'm not treating my body right. If I find that like my gameplay is off and that I just feel like mentally foggy inside of the game, then that means I'm probably not taking fantastic care of my body. And so it gives me a very good like early warning system, like, hey, maybe course correct now instead of waiting for it to become a much bigger problem.
That's really cool. I've definitely spoken a lot to the importance of sleep, drinking water, eating right, and all of that for the game, but it's cool to see that thought process reversed. Like, if you're getting these results, consider all of these different things that might be going on. Well, that goes through all of my questions that I had. Thank you both so much for being willing to share. And that's where the interview ended, right there. There is no outro. Goodbye.